Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, Ewan from What Culture, joined by Ash Millman.
Hello.
To talk to you about Watchmen because we're a day late because Watchmen doesn't air until the Mondays in the UK, but we both watched it yesterday and we thought we'd do a little video on the finale, the show in general, and also its biggest lingering unanswered questions because there is so much to digest in that episode. What did you think of last night's episode?
I thought it was so good. Honestly, it blew my mind how impressively all of the little threads came tied together. Like there was so much that they could have left unanswered, that they could have skimmed over, and just everything felt like it encapsulated perfectly. My big problem with other TV series and The Boys recently was that it just absolute sequel bait at the end and starts going, oh, okay, well, there's going to be another season, whereas this just went, no, okay, here is our fully formed arc that we've thought about, we care about, and we're delivering it in all of its wonderful beauty, and it was a sight, it was a spectacle.
Yes, it was just a really well-crafted piece of television, and it all was wrapped up in a nice little package. I had a great time, and I thought the way they kind of molded the flashbacks together came off really well. Yes. There were certain points throughout the series where I was kind of getting a little bit kind of weirded out by the Ozymandias Jupiter's moon plot, which was kind of, it was neither here nor there, although Jeremy Hines hamming it up in the worst American accent of 2019 was wonderful. There was certain points where I was like, okay, what's going on? And the way they bring it together with Lady True and her mother and the vault of the vault, and the gun, and then actually bringing that back together and having her, be revealed as his kind of batch 2456 or whatever it was very interesting. I thought it was quite a nice little arc, and the whole, the fact that she still kind of wants to, craving that fatherly love in a way. It was,
the noise of the gun. It was the sploosh of the splooge was not good. I was haunted after that. I was fully shivering. I was like, ugh, it was a cold gun.
That's the thing that and Lube Man, who we'll get to later on anyway. But we thought we'd basically go into like kind of the big revelations from the episode. Obviously, anyone who's watched it will know that obviously Senator Joe got the big iconic Watchmen Speedos out because he came in to absorb Dr. Manhattan's powers, and then Lady True comes in and is like, actually, I've been manipulating you the entire time, and he goes into the thing, the vault, the button gets switched, and then the door opens, and it's just goop.
He is human bean juice.
He's just absolute human bean juice. That is a very good reference to the David Ayer Watchmen footage that came out last week. They should all go watch. But he kind of comes out, he's all melted, and then Manhattan basically gives it a little touch, and Ozymandias, who's just returned, Looking Glass, who just has I just love how he's back. I was so happy.
I heard his voice, I was like, thank God.
And then obviously Silk Spectre too as well, and then they all kind of get teleported to his Antarctic thing, and Looking Glass is just there like, wait, you control all the squids from
his
here.
little stressed face is in the squids. I was like, oh, look at
It's the most definition of the dog that is, this is fine. And then basically they have a great idea just to freeze all the squids and then rain them down in some apocalyptic squid orgy death thing.
Squid orgy death?
Squid
orgy.
And True's obviously there trying to harness the power, and they all come raining down, and it's a bit messy. There's that bit where she looks at her hand, there's just a big old hole in there.
Squidded.
And then obviously after that, everything gets wrapped up in a nice little package. The one thing that I was most surprised by of all the unanswered questions was Laurie actually kind of changing her mind and basically saying, no, Adrian, we're taking your ass in.
Yeah.
And this is after obviously we get to see the original Night Owl ship as well, which is a great little Easter egg from the comics. But what did you think of, because you haven't read the original comic, have you?
This was very much fresh for me. I've seen the wonderful movie that came out, and this is basically my follow-up to that. I think if you just kind of swap Squid out for the bomb thing that they did in that movie, it works all right as some sort of lead up to it. I think without that I'd be completely lost.
Yes.
But the way that it's all come together and reading little tidbits around the edges, I had a really great time with this series, and I feel like it did everything it needed to, encapsulated in its TV show rather than being too obscure for fans who didn't read the comic or don't know the source material. Whilst also having lots of links to outside things that make you go, oh, I should engage with this more, and I want to go and read it and do this, that, and the other. So as for a finale for me, I thought it was great because, again, it's all in one nice arc, no sequel baiting, which is good. Yeah.
Yes, but there are some unanswered questions, obviously. So, Ozymandias, the whole thing at the end of the original Watchmen comic is that, he sends the big squid into New Jersey and kills 3 million people. Just a little tiny bit of genocide there. And to basically avert the doomsday clock from, going to midnight, and then Russia and America nuking the entire world. And he sees that as the big thing is 3 million lives weighed against the entire fate of the world. What are you going to choose? And then he basically lives his entire life in seclusion after this event, thinking that he's done a great job. But this show has a really interesting, kind of slightly not reassuring message is that even if you did all that, conflict is inevitable.
Yeah.
And Laurie basically changes her mind. You know, obviously she was in on the conspiracy at the end of the comic. She basically resolves, well, no, we're going to get you arrested now. And obviously it has big implications for the future, because if we actually do get a follow-up to this show, we're going to have to address Ozymandias answering for his crimes. Robert Redford, who is the president, he's going to lose everything because, you know, he was kind of manufactured to be president by Ozymandias as well. So that's really interesting.
I think it throws into question everything that is built up in this series and all the goodwill this series built up fighting against white supremacists, then have Robert Redford impeached and the wider problems in society then addressed full on with all this cover up and everything. It kind of, it would be a really interesting aftermath to witness, but one you have to be careful with, definitely after everything that's built up in this one.
Also the other big question that I thought was really kind of, they only really subtly landed on it, but in the finale, after everything has kind of been blown up by the frozen squids, you have Lady True's daughter, mother, clone, looking traumatized in the back of a police van, Red Scare, and Pirate Jenny, I think she's Pirate Jane, I can't remember. They're like consoling her, so I'm curious to see if there's going to be a legacy aspect going there. And obviously, you know, Angela's son also looks at her Night Sister outfit as well, and it's kind of clearly they exchange a glance, and it's kind of just like, and you know, so that's like that's an interesting thing. What if he kind of resolves to be a vigilante in the future?
100%.
What if the next season of Watchmen is another 20-year time gap and we have a big legacy aspect going on
That'd be so good. I think the way that it mirrored other things in the series was great as well. So obviously you've got the mother-daughter clone, freakishly, sitting in the back of the police car being consoled, and then it was the same as Angela being consoled by the police cars back in Vietnam when she was a young girl as well. And then her son as well, Topher, walking through. Did you see the bit with the lights where the Dream Theater has been...
Dr. M. I thought that was really clever. But obviously the biggest question that we have from this, the ending, is what happens to Angela and Wams, because obviously Manhattan gets kind of disapped, but then we also have one of the most interesting things where we have the flashback to when he was like, the eggs. Gotta remember, watch the eggs. And then it turns out that he's imbued his, or at least ostensibly has imbued his powers into the egg. And then Angela consumes the egg and then goes out to the pool. And obviously in the other episode, last week's episode, Dr. Manhattan was like, it's important you see me on the pool. It's important for later. Now, obviously the way this show ends is it's very much a callback to the original comic where you have the news intern kind of hovering his hand over Rorschach's journal over whether or not he's going to open it. And they kind of end it on a similar tease here, but that said, Damon Lindelof seems pretty sure that this is definitely actually Angela Abar's origin story of becoming the new Dr. Manhattan. He actually spoke to Vanity Fair, and he said, I don't want to be the person who says, like, here's exactly what happened if we had the camera run for another 5 seconds. We chose to cut to black where and when we did for a very specific reason that I don't really want to interrogate in any real way. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Can someone really make a legitimate argument that Dr. Manhattan said all that stuff about the egg, and that Angela grabbed the carton of eggs and threw it down as hard as she could, yet one miraculously survived? Or that Dr. Manhattan said in episode 8, I need you to see me in the pool, it's important for later. And then she would just basically splash into the pool and be like, well, I guess I misunderstood what he was going for there. And that is, you know, that pretty much spells it out for you anyway, if you hadn't really already gathered from the ending, is that it's pretty clear that she is the new Manhattan, and that raises so many fascinating implications.
Yes, it does, honestly. It does. I think it would be great to see her take on Dr. Manhattan's thing and what she would do with that as like Sister Night and going around doing all of her vigilante things, and how everything that has built her in this season. He spoke about, in another interview, about origin stories and there being 2 steps to them, like Hooded Justice having the things that shaped him as a child, and then his actions later in life, and that having two sides to it basically, and like the comedian being the start for Silk Spectre and then coming back as the FBI, and basically Angela having her stuff in Vietnam that like shaped her as a person, this being the second part of her story being shaped into a superhero. So it'd be interesting to see how they can continue that. I think it's incredibly clear that she is Dr. Manhattan. I don't think there's any question about it. As much as it would have been very funny to just see her like go 7 o'clock. Oh, okay.
The Curb Your Enthusiasm music just plays straight after.
Just like a black screen, then just splash in the background, like, oh know.
It's really interesting as well, because obviously Lady True, the reason why she wanted Manhattan's powers was because ostensibly, Manhattan didn't do enough, and even Will at the end of the show is like, he could have done a lot more.
I mean, he could have.
Yeah, and the thing is like, she's there saying, oh, I want to get rid of all the nukes, I want to end world hunger, I want to do all this and that, but obviously the show has some very obvious visual motifs where she sees herself as a Christ-like figure.
Yeah.
You obviously have the moment where it all comes crashing down, the cross falls off, they have that wonderful composed shot where she's looking at the fake church. Oh, it's so good. But obviously, Angela, with all her different lived experiences, probably would be a more benevolent Manhattan, you would think, or does absolute power corrupt absolutely?
She doesn't want it, is the thing. That was the whole thing. Everybody wanted this power and craved it and didn't deserve it, whereas she's the only one who is deserving of it because she didn't want it.
And she encouraged Manhattan to give it up as well, so they could be together. Honestly, like, one of the other things as well, before we actually wrap this up, is like, I've never been so affected by such a brief romance in a TV show before. I never thought I'd buy into it. But
so
like,
hard.
the fact that they only established that, the whole history of that in one episode, and then going through it with this, honestly, absolutely incredible. I was completely amazed by how they did that. And also, but just to wrap up the last most important question, Lube Man was Dale Petey, who was Laurie's FBI assistant. So
there's no more on that. Just that's who he was.
That's who he was.
He was a slippery boy.
The image is going through my mind, but thank God it replaced the sperm gun. So there we
that's
go.
back.
Yeah, it's
Egg.
back.
Egg.
And
Just
the
egg.
Yeah, please let us know what you thought of Watchmen down in the comments below. Are you hoping for a second season, or do you hope that they just leave this in a nice little preserved package that we can just respect and admire throughout all the time, like the original comic?
Like an egg.
Please let us know down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and head back on over to whatculture.com where you can find news, lists, and articles like this every day. I'm running out of breath, but you can follow me on Twitter at @NewRuneSings. You can follow Ash on Twitter at
Ash Millman.
And we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.